If we're going to be quarantined at home, you might as well spend your shelter in place with some great pizza. I'm Eric with Eric Anderson Homes, and I've spent the better part of the past decade honing my pizza making skills. As someone who eats pizza almost daily, I can honestly say the pizza I make at home rivals just about anything I buy. It's not only fresh and fun to make, but way cheaper. So here's my pandemic pizza recipe, which is really just a basic New York style pizza.
Blasphemy, this is Chicago.
The dough has 5 basic ingredients: water, salt, yeast, flour, and thyme. And that last part, thyme, is where most people go wrong, even the so-called pros. Thyme really is a key ingredient that can make or break a pizza dough. My recipe yields enough to feed an army, I have 6 kids, or 4 14-inch pizzas. At the end of this video, I'll share a version of that recipe that makes half the amount, or enough for 2 14-inch pizzas, or enough to feed someone who doesn't have enough children to qualify for their own zip code. I start with 640 grams of water, about 92 degrees. I do measure everything on a scale, kitchen scale, in grams, as precision is essential to baking. After that, I dissolve 26 grams of salt in the water. Once that's done, I add 2/3 teaspoon of active dry yeast. I use Safe Instant yeast, which requires no proofing. Let that hydrate in the water for about a minute, and then stir to dissolve. Finally, I add 1,000 grams of high-protein flour. I like King Arthur's better for bread flour, and stir in a stand mixer for about 90 seconds. Not over-kneading the dough is critical, or it'll result in a dough that's too elastic. Once the dough is mixed, here's where the final critical 2 steps come in. I cover the dough and let it rise at room temperature for 2 hours. After that, I divide the dough into 4 separate dough balls, put them in airtight storage containers, and let it rise in the refrigerator for 24 to 48 hours. 24 hours is ideal for this recipe, but the dough will still be good for up to 2 days. If you won't use it all by then, freeze it after 24 hours, and when you want to use the frozen dough, let it thaw in your refrigerator for 24 hours prior to using. When you're ready to bake, preheat your oven to 550 degrees for at least an hour and take the dough out of the refrigerator at least 30 minutes prior to cooking. Shape the dough into about a 14-inch circle and top with sauce, cheese, and whatever else you like. I'll shape and prepare the pizza on parchment paper so the raw dough doesn't stick to the oven. You could skip the paper by dusting with flour or cornmeal, but I prefer a cleaner dough, which you can get with the parchment paper. I'll dust with a little flour prior to shaping so the dough doesn't stick to my hands or the paper. Lately, my favorite way to prepare sauce is to mix about 2/3 of ground tomatoes with about 1/3 heavy tomato puree, then mix in either Parmesan cheese or oregano to taste. Cheese-wise, I typically use a whole milk mozzarella. Sometimes I'll opt for a mozzarella provolone blend. Once the pizza's in the oven, I'll bake for 3 minutes or so before removing the parchment paper, and then let the pizza continue to bake until the cheese turns that beautiful golden brown, about another 5 minutes at this temperature if you've preheated your oven properly. I'll often kick on the broiler for that last minute of bake time to get a nice light char. But be careful if you do this, as the pizza could burn very quickly. I'm Eric with Eric Anderson Homes, and I hope you enjoy this recipe as much as I do.